Welcome back to my channel of Dice and Nerds. If you're new here, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and show me some love on my way to 100 subscribers. Now, if you've been on my channel before, you know that I've done character builds in the past. And after a very overextended break due to some circumstances that I had going on in the background, I'm back now and ready to go with a new build. And this time, we're going with Bond, the Undying Sin. And he's going to step to the plate. So let's get to it. Now, with Bond, my rules have got to tweak a little bit. In the Escanor video, I was not going to use the Unearthed Arcana, but with him I'm going to have to for one class in particular, and that's the Rogue. There's one Unearthed Arcana Rogue subclass that works wonderfully with the Immortal build that I'm trying to go for with this. So, let's see. So we're going to run into the first step here, and that's going to be his race. And you can see on the screen I put Wood Elf. So the reason for that is because he needs that extended life for the 700 plus years. On top of that, that gives him kind of a relationship with the fairy, with the fae, and that'll also give him a little bit of resistance to magic, and it'll give him resistance to being put to sleep with magic specifically. On top of that, being a wood elf, that's going to give you an extra 5 feet of movement just starting out, and it will give you the ability to hide even when lightly obscured. And I know he's really good at that, being the fox sin of greed, so I wanted to play into that as much as possible. With his background, I ended up going with the Haunted One background here, and the reason for that is because with the whole death of Elaine situation, it really plays into the Haunted One background. Now, you get an option of multiple different skills with that background. I ended up choosing Investigation and Survival. And then it's going to add Abyssal to his languages of already having Elven and Common. And I chose Abyssal because demons were what had killed Elaine, and so I thought it kind of made sense. He'll receive a Monster Hunters pack. That's kind of irrelevant. A trinket of special significance, which I ended up flavoring to be the scar on his neck and cheek from Meliodas. He'll get a set of clothes and a silver piece, and he'll get the Heart of Darkness feature right here. So basically, you can see here, it says, those who look into your eyes can see that you have faced unimaginable horror and that you're no stranger to darkness. Though they may fear you, commoners will extend every courtesy and do their utmost to help you. Unless you've shown yourself to be a danger to them, they will even take up arms to fight alongside you should you find yourself facing an enemy alone. So that's a really powerful ability, and I liked it. Whether or not it goes with Bond, then you can decide that, but I thought it works really well with him, the whole background. His traits for the background, like his personality traits, whatever, what have you, you can choose whatever you want for those. It's your character. But for me, I do recommend choosing from the Haunted One background because a lot of those suit him perfectly, like to a T. I'm not going to go into them. There's a lot of them, and it's going to take way too much time to do that, so we're not going to worry about that. Just look into that if you're wanting to make this character. So what class should we start with, you think? You would say Rogue, obviously, because of his being the fox sin of greed and being a thief. And I would agree with that because while you could start as a barbarian, giving him that resistance to damage and the unarmored defense starting out, and the rage damage, I thought that having the expertise in stealth and sleight of hand, and having the sneak attack that he could do, all of that suits way more into his character. So I decided to start with Rogue. And with his stats, I ended up using the standard array. So we're going to go back here for a second. Let's see. I went with the standard array of 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. Now you can see here they're a little bit different because of the bonuses. Because he's an elf, he has a +2 to dex, which is going to make this a 17. This goes to 18 later. And being a wood elf, you get a +1 to wisdom, which made this an 11. And it goes up to 12 later. So the way that I did the stats, the reason I did that is because it covers everything you need for the 3 classes we're going to use on this Immortal build. So at level 1, start with Rogue. That's going to give you 3 things. That's the expertise in sleight of hand and stealth, sneak attack for an additional 1d6 damage per round, and then Thieves' Cant that you can use however you see fit. Your starting proficiencies are going to be in light armor, simple weapons, hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, short swords, the basics for a rogue. You'll get thieves' tools, proficiencies, as well as proficiency in dexterity and intelligence saving throws. Now with those, that's actually kind of cool. I didn't really realize that the rogue had those 2 saves, because dexterity being the most important and the most common of the saving throws, intelligence is the rarest and the hardest to pass. So the rogue having an intelligence save on top of that dexterity save is really powerful. And it's going to play really well into this build also. Because as you know, barbarians are not very good with intelligence. So him having a +5 there with his intelligence saving throw would really help later, since this build is primarily a zealot barbarian for that immortal fill. You're going to get to choose out of acrobatics, athletics, deception, insight, intimidation, investigation, perception, performance, persuasion, sleight of hand, or stealth with your starting skills. You get 4 of them. I ended up choosing stealth, sleight of hand, perception, and athletics. I'm going to go down to the skills here real quick. You can see here perception, sleight of hand, stealth, survival, investigation, and intimidation, athletics, and animal handling. So a lot of these skills are going to come in later. Primarily from the barbarian side of things. So at level 2, we're going to go into Rogue again. That'll give you a cunning action ability. Not much else happens after that. So we're going to go straight into level 3. That's going to bring us to the meat of the Rogue that I wanted to really touch on. This is that Unearthed Arcana Rogue. So with that one, you're going to get the Revived Rogue. I don't know if you've read into this one, but if you have, you know what I'm talking about. So let's look here at the Revived Nature. You'll get this at 3rd level when you choose it. You get advantage on saving throws against being diseased or being poisoned, and you have resistance to poison damage as a whole. You don't have to eat, you don't have to drink, you don't have to breathe, you don't even have to sleep. You just got to take 4 hours just being inactive, being motionless, and you stay semi-conscious and alert. So you can still hear as normal and keep watch and let the rest of your party sleep. And as you'll see later, we're going to take the alert feat. So our our initiative is going to be a really high number. So if we did end up getting into an encounter, we're probably going to go first and take care of it pretty quickly. Now, on top of that, we're going to get the tokens of past lives. That's going to give us a tool proficiency or a skill proficiency that we can choose after we take a long rest. It's interchangeable. I ended up going with the tool proficiency and artisan's tool of chef's tools because he's a chef. I didn't want to take the chef feat. It didn't really work with my build, so I kind of opted for the tokens of past lives to kind of cover that. After that, you're also going to get bolts from the grave. So this right here, it gives you bolts of necrotic energy that leap from your body. Immediately after you use your cunning action, you can make a ranged spell attack against a creature within 30 feet of you, provided you haven't used your sneak attack yet. You're proficient with the attack. You add your dexterity modifier to its attack and damage roll. And a creature hit by this attack takes necrotic damage equal to your sneak attack, and it uses that sneak attack for the turn. So I couldn't find a way to kind of illustrate his snatch ability. So using bolts from the grave, you can kind of flavor that to be like he's snatching their life force away from them. Kind of playing into that snatch ability. It's not super powerful, but it still works. I mean, you can do it every turn if you really wanted to. Okay. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to go to level 4, and that's going to dip us into Fighter. The reason for that is because of the ability to get the action surge and the fighting style and the second wind. The second wind, that's going to give you more survivability with the additional 1d10 plus your fighter level. You're going to get the fighting style. I chose 2-up fighting. You can choose any of them you really want to. I figured that would give the more bang for your buck, but later game that might not be the case. You might want to go with dueling or something similar, but that's up to you. And then at level 5, we're going to go Fighter again. That's going to give us the Action Surge ability, which I know you all know that Action Surge is a very powerful ability. And having a second action is a wonderful thing. Okay. At level 6, we're going to dip into the Barbarian. So the rest of our build's going to be in this Barbarian. Okay. So level 6, we're going to get Unarmored Defense. That's going to give us the Dexterity and the Constitution modifier added to our base AC. That's going to let us take the leather armor off from being a rogue and go for that more naturalistic look that Bond has always had. Your AC is going to stay the same, so it's not going to make a difference until later when your ability scores go up. You'll also get 2 rages a day with a +2 to your damage from that rage. You'll get resistance to non-magical damage and advantage on strength saves and strength checks. At level 7, we're going to get Reckless Attack. That'll give him advantage on all of his attacks. You know, it simulates his animalistic, almost savage attacks that he has in the show. It's like when you're fighting Bond, it's almost like you're fighting a savage animal. You'll get the uncanny danger senses that he has, and that gives him advantage on dexterity saving throws as long as he can see what's coming at him. At level 8, that's going to give us the primal path of the Zealot that we were trying to dip into. Now, when we get that, that'll give us Divine Fury, which is here. Basically, whenever you're raging, the first creature you hit on your turn with a weapon attack, it'll take 1d6 plus half your barbarian level as necrotic or radiant damage. It just kind of adds that extra oomph to your hit on your first hit. And on top of that, most likely you're going to have advantage because of your reckless attack. And that's going to play well into your sneak attack on top of that. So, being 3 levels in rogue with your 2d6 sneak attack, with this 1d6 plus your barbarian level as extra damage on top of your basic damage, that's a pretty heavy hit. I mean, it's not paladin levels, but I mean, that's not what we're going for. We're going for survivability and immortality. If we got good damage, that's a plus. On top of that, you're going to get Warrior of the Gods. Basically, all this is say you do die, any raised dead spell, any spell that's going to bring you back to life, not undeath, but just back to life, doesn't require material components. So you can be brought back for free, no matter what the spell is. It's just going to cost them a spell slot. After that, you'll get a 3rd rage that you can use a day. Okay, next we're going to go to level 9. Level 9, we're just going to get an ability score increase this level, which it's our first one, but we're just going to use that to increase our dexterity to 18 and our wisdom to 12, like I mentioned earlier. At level 10, we're going to gain the extra attack feature, and our movement will increase by 10 feet while we're not wearing heavy armor. And so, since we're using the Unarmored Defense and we're a Wood Elf, we already have 35 movement speed. With this, that's going to make it a total of 45, which will move a long distance with your uncanny action. You can dash as a bonus action. So you can move 90 feet in a turn, and you're not gonna bat an eye at that. At level 11, we're gonna get our Fanatical Focus. That's this right here. So if you fail a saving throw while you're raging, you can re-roll that saving throw, but you've got to use that next roll. And you can only use that ability once per rage. So you have a total of, at level 11 here, you have a total of 4 rages. So we can do this 4 times a day, essentially. After that, we're going to go to level 12. That's going to give us Feral Instinct, which is going to give us advantage on initiative rolls, which is already a high plus once we get that alert feature. And on top of that, we can act normally on our turn after surprise as long as we rage on our turn. Level 13, that's our second ability score increase. This time we're going to opt to get the alert feat. That'll make our initiative an additional +5. And it'll give us immunity to being surprised. And we no longer grant advantage to hidden creatures who try to attack us. And I think that's wonderful. So that's going to bring our initiative to a +9 here. And with advantage on that roll, you are 100% going first. Unless you have bad luck, like me. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, after that, we're going to go level 14. That's going to give us Brutal Critical. So with Brutal Critical, you probably know what that is. It adds an additional die to your critical hits, and your rage damage increases to +3. So instead of rolling 2 die on your critical hit, you're going to roll 3. At level 15, we get our Zealous Presence. We can use a bonus action to give up to 10 creatures we can see within 60 feet of us advantage on their hits and saving throws until our next turn. It's once a long rest, but it's a very powerful ability in the right circumstance. At level 16, we're going to get our Relentless Rage. Now, Relentless Rage here says that you can keep fighting despite those grievous wounds, the ones that would kill the normal person. If you drop to 0 hit points while you're raging and don't die outright, you can make a DC 10 con save, and if you succeed, you drop to 1 hit point instead, and it rises by 5 on the DC every time you use this feature. And it refills after a short rest. Or resets, rather. At level 17, we get another ability score increase. So, with this one, we're going to go with the Tough Feat, purely because our HP is not the highest like I would like it to be. So, with the Tough Feat, that's going to give us an additional 34 hit points. And it's going to increase our max hit points by 2 every level after level 17. And then our rage is going to increase to 5 times a day, which was going to buff that ability from earlier, letting us reroll that save 5 times a day. At level 18, we get the second Brutal Critical upgrade. So what that's going to do is whenever we roll a crit, instead of getting 3 die, we're going to get 4 die, which is wonderful. Say you're using a great axe, you're going to roll 4d12 instead of 2d12. At level 19, you're going to get Rage Beyond Death. That's a really powerful ability from the Path of the Zealot. Let's pull it up real quick. While you're raging, if you have 0 hit points, it's not going to knock you unconscious. You still make death saves, and you suffer the normal effects of that damage that you take after being at 0 hit points. But if you would die due to failing those saves, you don't die unless your rage ends, and you only die then if you still have 0 hit points. That's pretty easy to circumvent. So this is a really easy way to make an immortal build. There were other options, but I wanted to go for this way because I felt like it made you the most resilient. Okay, and then at level 20, we're going to get Persistent Rage, which basically all this says is that your rage only ends early if you will it to, or if you're unconscious. So that's pretty much it for this build. I didn't do what I did with Escanor and get all the magical items and whatnot. I didn't think I really needed to with this one. I wasn't building it for damage, per se. I was really just building it for survivability. I know a Ring of Regeneration would be wonderful, or some type of a regeneration magical item. Periapt of Wound Closure would be wonderful on him. There are multiple things. You might even convince your DM to give you the boon of immortality. And with that, you're just completely unkillable at this point. But that completes the build that I came up with for Bond. It's powerful, tenacious. It'll definitely keep your DM pulling his hair out. But if you did like this build, let me know in the comments, and let me know if you have any other build ideas that you want to see. Make sure to like and subscribe, and have a crit of the day, guys. Thanks.